शुरू करूंगी। इंग्लिश और हिंदी में दोनों मिलके मैं बात करने की कोशिश करूंगी। सबसे पहले जो पॉक्सो आने से पहले, पॉक्सो का मतलब है प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ चिल्ड्रन फ्रॉम सेक्सुअल ऑफेंसेस एक्ट। ये एक्ट जारी होने से पहले बाल यौन शोषण के जो केसेस होते थे वो बहुत कम रिपोर्टिंग होते थे। पॉक्सो के आने के बाद जो बच्चों के साथ यौन शोषण होता है उसका रिपोर्टिंग में थोड़ा सा इम्प्रूवमेंट हुआ है। तो 2021 का जो डेटा है नेशनल क्राइम रिकॉर्ड्स ब्यूरो का डेटा में देखेंगे तो अक्रॉस इंडिया वी हैड 53,900 केसेस रिपोर्टेड अंडर पॉक्सो एक्ट। एंड इसमें विक्टिम्स जो हैं, विक्टिम्स का परसेंटेज जो है 97, यू कैन गो टू द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। विक्टिम्स परसेंटेज जो है गर्ल्स 97% एंड बॉयज 2%। इसके बारे में जस्ट एक मिनट के लिए मैं बात करना चाहती हूँ। जो रिपोर्टिंग है इज नॉट अ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द काइंड ऑफ वायलेंस, सेक्सुअल वायलेंस दैट बॉयज फेस। लड़कों के साथ भी बहुत ज़्यादा यौन शोषण होता है एंड दूसरे रिसोर्स पर्सन इसके बारे में शायद बात करेंगे, पर जो रिपोर्टिंग है बहुत कम रिपोर्टिंग होता है जो लड़कियों के अलावा जो होता है। तो in 2021 the data was 97% victim girls and 2% victim boys. Another data which also other resource persons will touch upon is that जो offenders होते हैं, जो अपराधी होते हैं, वो ज़्यादातर जान पहचान लोग ही होते हैं एंड इसके बारे में भी नेक्स्ट सेशन में कवर होगा। एंड डेटा में जो आया है क्राइम रिकॉर्ड्स डेटा में 61% ऑफ द ऑफेंडर्स of penetrative sexual assault and aggravated penetrative sexual assault are people known to the victim in 2021. Alright. तो पॉक्सो आने से पहले इंडिया में ऑलरेडी बहुत सारे कानून थे जो सेक्सुअल ऑफेंसेस को कवर करते थे, इंक्लूडिंग द इंडियन पीनल कोड, इमोरल ट्रैफिक प्रिवेंशन एक्ट, SC/ST एक्ट, IT एक्ट, राइट्स ऑफ पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटी, JJ एक्ट, चाइल्ड लेबर एक्ट, चाइल्ड मैरिज प्रोहिबिशन एक्ट। तो बहुत सारे लेजिस्लेशंस ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग में थे। सो व्हाई डिड वी नीड अ स्पेशल लेजिस्लेशन टू कवर सेक्सुअल ऑफेंसेस अगेंस्ट चिल्ड्रन? तो ऐसा स्पेशल कानून की जरूरत क्या थी? सो द की, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। की फीचर्स ऑफ पॉक्सो एक्ट जो है, सबसे पहले ये है कि जेंडर न्यूट्रल। इस पॉक्सो के आने से पहले ऑल द लॉज वर मोर गियर्ड टुवर्ड्स गर्ल्स एंड वुमेन। तो अगर लड़कों के साथ मतलब अंडर 18 एज का लड़कों के साथ अगर कुछ यौन शोषण होता उसमें अदर देन सेक्शन 377 अंडर द IPC there were no other legal provisions providing protection for children. So POCSO first of all was gender neutral and POCSO में child friendly provisions लाया गया है for reporting, recording of evidence, investigation and trial. We'll go into that in detail in just a bit. Under POCSO, the offender is presumed guilty. POCSO is such an act which is not like other acts. Very few acts consider the offender as guilty, and the innocence of the offender is, the burden of proof is on the offender to prove themselves to be innocent. And इसके साथ साथ special courts have been designated for speedy trial. Punishment is graded as per the gravity of the offence, and अगर अपराधी जो हैं बच्चे होते हैं उनके लिए whatever provisions of the Juvenile Justice Act that would be considered for child offenders under POCSO Act. Another thing that POCSO did was define sexual offences. POCSO आने से पहले बहुत limited understanding of sexual offences against children थे। POCSO में 7 सेक्सुअल ऑफेंसेस डिस्क्राइब किए गए हैं। उसके साथ साथ मैंडेटरी रिपोर्टिंग भी पॉक्सो में आया है। सेक्शन 19 ऑफ पॉक्सो makes it mandatory on any citizen of India or any person who has knowledge or apprehension that a child has faced sexual violence to be reported, and not reported to the doctor, not reported to Childline. If I have any information, if anybody in the room or watching this webinar has any information on a child facing sexual abuse, they are required to report it to the local jurisdictional police station or to the special juvenile police unit. This is the requirement under section 19 of the POCSO Act. And अगर हमसे ये reporting नहीं होता है, Then under section 21, there is a punishment of 6 months of jail term for the person who doesn't report. POCSO also has a provision for false reporting. अगर मैं किसी के खिलाफ गलत फहमी false केस मैं रजिस्टर करती हूँ, then मेरे खिलाफ केस रजिस्टर करने का false reporting का भी POCSO में है. Emergency medical services, POCSO made it mandatory, and subsequent to the 2012 case in Delhi, the Criminal Law Amendment Act made it mandatory that all hospitals, government and private, have to provide emergency medical care, treatment, sample collection and investigation for any victim of sexual violence, khas karke the POCSO Act. POCSO also has provisions for care and protection. The Child Welfare Committee is vested with the responsibility of care and protection of the victim child. POCSO में बहुत सारे child friendly procedures लाए गए हैं, इसके बारे में just अभी 5 मिनट में बात करते हैं. Special courts have been designated. POCSO also has compensation, victim compensation and financial relief have been provided for under POCSO Act. Child is anyone below the age of 18 would be considered as a child. Going forward, the offences under POCSO have been categorized under touch-based offences, non-touch-based offences and other offences. Touch-based offences का मतलब किसी बच्चे का शरीर को छू के अगर कुछ offence होता है, उसको touch-based offences में लाया है, and उसमें penetrative sexual assault and aggravated penetrative sexual assault. So under penetrative sexual assault, the provisions are for any form of penetration. It is not limited to peno-vaginal penetration, जो पुराने like IPC and दूसरे laws में होते थे. Any form of penetration by any object like a finger or a pen, a pencil, by any person. So it's not limited only to a male person causing a penetrative sexual assault. Any person committing a penetrative sexual assault, which can be oral, anal or vaginal. Any one of these categories would be considered as a penetrative sexual assault. This is section 3, usme punishment section 4 hai. There is another category called aggravated penetrative sexual assault under POCSO Act, which is for depending on the person who has committed the sexual offense. So category of the offender के ऊपर dependent है, बच्चे का उम्र, जितने बार बच्चे के साथ हुआ है, बच्चे के साथ ये penetrative sexual assault के बाद अगर बच्चा pregnant हो जाती है या अगर बच्चे को HIV हो जाता है या मानसिक रूप से या शारीरिक रूप से अगर बच्चे के ऊपर बहुत जोर से प्रभाव होता है, all of these are aggravating factors. So section 5 of the POCSO Act, there are I think about 20 subsections in section 5 which categorize different reasons why a penetrative sexual assault would be considered as aggravated penetrative sexual assault. The reason for having another section under aggravated penetrative sexual assault is there is graded and increased punishment under aggravated penetrative sexual assault. The next touch-based offense would be sexual assault, which is without penetration, but there is touching of the body of a child. So touching of the body, in the last few years, बहुत सारे high courts ने ये decide किया है कि it does not have to be touching only of the sexual organs or the genitals of a child. It can be any inappropriate touch, but with sexual intent. So sexual intent to be established is very key in sexual assault, and that would be under section 7 and 8. And section 9 and 10 are aggravated sexual assault. So again, depending on the category of the person who has committed the sexual assault, if it is a family member, a police officer, a government servant, any person from the army, navy, armed forces, any person in charge of a childcare institution, any person from a medical facility, any person working in a organization that provides services to children, बहुत सारा categories दिए गए हैं. And a relative of the child, and the term relative has been described under POCSO Act as not being related only through blood. It can be relation through marriage, adoption, foster care, shared household, etc. So aggravated sexual assault and aggravated penetrative sexual assault have defined relationships in great detail. I suggest the people who are listening to the webinar to please go and check what categories classifies as aggravated offences. Sexual intent, very important to establish. There is one challenge in sexual assault, इसमें बहुत कम medical evidence मिलता है, तो पुलिस को ये cases में investigate करना मुश्किल है, but बच्चे के consistent statement, अगर पुलिस के statement record करने से लेके magistrate के सामने जो statement record होता है, उसके बाद जो बच्चे का बयान होता है कोर्ट के टाइम पे, उस टाइम पे अगर the child has been consistently saying the same thing, the statement of a child is sufficient to find a person guilty of offences under POCSO Act. Several sessions courts and the superior courts, the high courts, have found people guilty based on the consistent statement of a child. All right, moving forward, other touch-based offences are using of a child for pornographic purposes. So agar pornography is not illegal in India, but any form of child pornography is completely illegal in India, and any person found with any inappropriate images of their child, it can even be someone like a parent who has inappropriate images of a child, can be tried under POCSO Act. And then there is of course using a child for pornographic purposes, where a child is made to perform acts under like penetrative sexual assault or sexual assault, and that is videographed and then publicized. All of that would be considered under using of a child for pornographic purposes. Sections are 13, 14 and 15. The recent amendments to POCSO Act in 2018 and 19 amended that and increased the punishment for using of a child for pornographic purposes. This is a very, very big issue across the country. This is a global issue. Child pornography is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed, and everyone here in this room and webinar can probably contribute in some way. Non-touch based offences would be sexual harassment, जो हिंदी में जो हम छेड़खानी बोलते हैं, would be there is no touch involved, but there is inappropriate gesturing, speaking to a child inappropriately, sending inappropriate messages, showing a child pornography, making the child take off their clothes, showing themselves in a naked manner before the child. So there are various categories of sexual harassment which are defined under section 11 of POCSO Act. Punishment section is 12 under POCSO. Other offences under POCSO would be failure to report a case, which I already spoke to you about, which would be under section 19 and 21 of POCSO Act. Failure to record. This is again a serious offense under POCSO. Any police officer who refuses to accept a complaint, कभी कभी ऐसा होता है police officers बताएंगे कि नहीं जी ये family का matter है, घर के अंदर है, ये हम case report नहीं करेंगे. A case can be registered against a police officer for failure to record under section 20, and the punishment is under section 21. POCSO also provides for false complaint, which we spoke about very briefly. Punishment is under section 22 of POCSO Act. Disclosure of the identity of a child is a punishable offence under POCSO Act. Next, please. Just a brief overview of the punishments under POCSO Act. As you can see, penetrative sexual assault has a minimum punishment of 10 years, right up to life imprisonment for the remainder of the person's life. Aggravated penetrative sexual assault, minimum punishment is 20 years, going up to life imprisonment, or in certain categories it can even lead to death penalty. Punishment for sexual assault is 3 to 5 years. Punishment for aggravated sexual assault is 5 years to 7 years. Sexual harassment punishment is 3 years. All of the others are fairly simple and straightforward. Yeah. So moving on to the roles and responsibilities of people under POCSO Act, इसमें stakeholders, key stakeholders जो हैं वो हैं most important of course is the child and the family. अगर कोई बच्चा सामने नहीं आता है रिपोर्ट करने के लिए तो कोई केस नहीं होगा. So the most important stakeholder in a POCSO case would be the child and family, followed by the police. The police are responsible for recording of the information, registering a case and then investigating it. Along with that, we have the NGOs, the Child Welfare Committee. In terms of investigation, we have the Special Juvenile Police Unit, and we have the magistrate who records the statement under section 164 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Under care and protection, we have the SJPU and the police are again vested with some interest. And then we have the Child Welfare Committee. We have the District Child Protection Unit, We have the special court with certain responsibilities related to care and protection, and then of course we have medical practitioners responsible for care and protection. In the trial stage, we have the special court, which would be a sessions court. We have the special public prosecutor, and we have a support person. In terms of implementing and monitoring of the POCSO Act, the state government and more importantly, the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights and the State Commission for the Protection of Child Rights are vested with the responsibility of implementing and monitoring. Now, in terms of what does the child and family need for reporting a case or after reporting a case? First of all, for a child and family to come forward and report a case is very, very challenging. There's a lot of pressure on the child and the immediate family to not report a case because जैसे हमने पहले ही बताया था कि ये जान पहचान लोग से ही होता है. तो जब जान पहचान लोग से होता है, then family और बच्चा ये रिपोर्ट करने में ही बहुत reluctant होते हैं. अगर by chance वो आके रिपोर्ट करते हैं, उनको क्या क्या चाहिए रिपोर्ट करने के बाद, वो होता है information about their case, entitlements which is provided under the law. So there is a Form A in the POCSO Rules 2020 which has clearly defined what are the entitlements of a child, and then receiving the medical reports are also an entitlement of the child. Timely financial relief and compensation as provided under the law. Speedy disposal of case, need for the child to be met in terms of the interpreter, special educator. Next please. What are the support services available? It's a very short time, but I'll just go through this really quickly. What are support services? Police have the responsibility of conducting child-friendly investigation, and that would mean that the officer is not in uniform. More importantly, the child does not need to go to a police station. The police are required to go to where the child is comfortable. A person that the child trusts and has some confidence in is required to be present with the child at all times. The police are required to submit a copy of the charge of the first information report and the preliminary assessment under Form B to the Child Welfare Committee so that any provisions for the child safety can be taken, and most importantly, timely information to the child and family. From the Child Welfare Committee or the CWC, the support services available are care and protection, shelter, reintegration with the family. So institutionalization is an option that's available. That should be the last option. So if a child is placed in an institution, reintegration with the family is a responsibility of the CWC. Immediate financial aid. बच्चों के लिए, families के लिए ये बहुत ज़रूरत होता है कि इमीडिएट फाइनेंशियल, कभी कभी ऐसा होता है उनको पुलिस स्टेशन तक आने के लिए पैसा नहीं होता है, बस चार्ज नहीं होता है, कैब का फेयर नहीं होता है, तो the CWC can immediately award financial aid. Different states have different schemes for financial aid across the country. Medical doctors, in terms of support services, their responsibilities are providing treatment and therapeutic care for the child. Medical investigation with the consent of the child and family. If there are medical practitioners listening to this, the consent of the child and family is absolutely mandatory. Please refer to the medico-legal guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Medical termination of pregnancy is the right of a person who's pregnant. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, Amendment 2021 are relevant in this situation. Please refer to that. Counseling and therapy is also another very important area which is very often badly neglected. In terms of the courts, there are time frames which are prescribed under the POCSO Act. A trial is required to be completed within 1 year of the court taking cognizance of the case. A child's testimony is required to be recorded within 30 days so that the child doesn't forget, the child doesn't need to continue the trauma. Child-friendly procedures during trials are in-camera trials, no aggressive questioning by the defense lawyer or by the public prosecutor, a trusted adult to be present with the child at all times, and for the child not to be called repeatedly to the court. Supreme Court has passed a fantastic scheme on witness protection, which unfortunately is not very strong right now in the country, but there is an excellent witness protection scheme which also families and the police can intervene with and seek assistance for the child and family. Victim compensation can be paid. Interim compensation can be paid at any time after the registering of a complaint, and final compensation at the time of disposal of the case. At any point, depending on the needs of a child, if it's a child with disabilities, दिव्यांग बच्चा है या बच्चा जो यहाँ का भाषा नहीं बात करता है, इस बच्चे को interpreters, translators, special educators, sign language experts, mental health professionals का सहारा लेने का provision दिया गया है. Protection of the identity of the child through all processes is a mandatory requirement of POCSO Act. Violation of this is also punishment. 32 seconds. Identity proof child. Child not to come face to face with the accused at all times. There is a provision for support persons which is provided for under POCSO rules. A support person has a very key role to play in the journey of a child through a POCSO case. And my suggestion would be for any person who's working in the area of child rights to see how you can help a child victim as a support person appointed by the CWC. Thank you very much.